long, long ago, when the earth was new, it was the animals that owned the earth. So, and the humans were poor, sorry creatures. It was the animals that walked on two legs. It was the animals that spoke. But they cared for the poor humans. And the animals saw that the humans in their village were fine in the summer because they were warm. But in the winter, they were cold. And because they were cold, they became ill and they died. And the people, the animals, people, were unhappy about this. So they had a meeting. And they said, these poor human beings, they do not have our fur to keep them warm. And they are dying every winter. What can we do to help them? So they all thought about it. The eagle thought about it and couldn't think of anything at all. And the bison, no, couldn't think of anything. But coyote, tricky, naughty coyote, he could think of something. And he said, I know. What they need is fire to keep them warm. And the only creatures that had fire were the fire creatures, the fire beings that lived on top of Fire Mountain. And they were known as very dangerous creatures that could just kill you with one touch of their fiery hands. Oh, said Eagle. Well, that seems to be the idea then. We need some of us to go to the Fire Mountain and get some fire so that we can give fire to the human beings. Who's going to go? And he looked round. Bison, no. Rabbit, no. And then they came to Coyote. Yes, Coyote, yes, I am brave enough. I will go. But I will need some help. And again he looked round, and the only people that would help him was frog, chipmunk, you know chipmunk? Chipmunk, little animal, and squirrel, you know squirrel? Squirrel that now has the curly tail. But in those times, the frog had a long tail that he was very proud of. And the chipmunk was all white. Okay. And the squirrel also had a long tail that came out from behind him. So, Coyote, he said, I know where Fire Mountain is. Follow me. So he set off, and they all followed him, and he went off through the grassland. Through the grassland. Until he came to the desert. Oh, the hot desert. And then came across the bit where there was a sticky mud. Until he came to the great river. And they swam across the river. And those that couldn't swim swam on the backs of those that could. Until they came up to the Fire Mountain. And they climbed up the Fire Mountain, and they're looking down, and it was a long way down, and they knocked rocks, and rocks went down below them, until they got to the top of Fire Mountain. And they could see the camp of the fire beings. Now, there were only 2 fire beings, and they kept a fire burning all the time. That was their job. They were guardians of the fire. They had to keep the fire going, because otherwise there would be no fire on earth. And when the coyote came up to see, he said, "Everybody hide. We're going to watch what they do." And they found that they stayed out there all day, so there was no chance of getting to the fire and grabbing some fire and taking it. But they waited until night, and they noticed that one was on guard and the other went to have a sleep. So they waited until that happened. And just when the guardian that was asleep, he was asleep in his tent, and the other guardian left the fire unattended to go in and wake him up, that was the time. That was the time to grab the fire, because no one was looking at it. So Coyote started to move. But the fire beings heard it. And they said, "What's that? What's that?" "Oh, it's only an old coyote. He's no problem." And the coyote wasn't pleased with that. "No, I'm a brave coyote." But he kept quiet. And then he waited, and he watched. And he waited when the one fire being got up and went to the tent. So the fire being went over, went into the tent, and said, "Come on, you lazy." "Oh no, I don't want to get up now, I don't want to do." "No, come and get up." All that time, there, Coyote went across, went to the fire, and grabbed a brand, a stick, with fire, 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 and started to run away. And he met his friends, Frog, Squirrel, and Chipmunk. And they were just getting to the edge when both of the fire beings came out, and they saw, "Oh, what's this? There's this fire." And then they could see in the distance the fire burning. And they said, "No, we must stop this. No one can take our fire." So they ran and they ran after Coyote, after Frog, after Chipmunk, and after Squirrel. And the first one was Coyote, who had in his mouth. So he was running there, and they caught up with him. The fire beings caught up with him and just tried to get him, and they pulled their hands down his back. And ever since then, Coyote has had a white stripe all the way down his back. But he managed to escape, and he threw it to Squirrel, and Squirrel got it, and Squirrel was running down, and the fire beings got him, and they caught hold of his back and right down his long, long tail. But with the fire, it burnt it, and the tail went shh, like we see now. The squirrel has a curly tail. And so he ran on, and he passed it to Chipmunk. And Chipmunk was running on, and they caught up with him, and again they caught him there, and they scratched him down with their hot hands. And now Chipmunk has always he's got stripes. He's got black and white stripes where the fire being has scratched him. And went on. Who's left?
The frog.
The frog. And the frog with his lovely long tail. And he just managed, so Chipmunk threw it to Frog, and it landed on his tail. And he just managed to get that. And the fire beings caught him by the tail, and he lost his tail. All his tail was taken off. But they managed to get down. Now, this is where, everybody up? Because we're going to do the great escape now. Okay? So standing where you are now, we're going to go down that journey. Okay? So we're going down, 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 down the rocky mountain. Okay? And then we're going out into the mud. Yeah, we've got the sounds. Okay? And then across the hot desert. And then through the grasslands. And we've got it in the wrong order, but we are going to the river, aren't we? Oh, now, how do we do that? Because we have got fire, haven't we? So, what happened was that coyote who could swim, they sat on the back of him, or Frog was all right, Frog was coming up behind, and they managed to keep it up and get it all over the water, over the river, and they got to the other side. And then they got to the other side, and it had gone. It had gone out. Oh no. But the fire had gone into the wood. How to get it out. But they took it back, and they took it back to the rest of the animals, and they said, "We've got fire." And they said, "Well, where is it?" "You haven't got fire." Ah, but Coyote was very clever. And he put a piece of wood down, and then he took the twig that he'd got, and he put it here, like this. And we got a little smoke. Until we had more smoke and fire, and there was fire. It was in the wood. The fire was in the wood. So they were able to go to the village of the humans and present them with fire and show them how we make fire. And from then on, the humans had fire, and it meant that they could go through the winter, they could be in their lodges, they could be in their teepees, and they would be warm. So, that's the story, how fire came to the humans and how Coyote